When selecting a typeface, consider these 5 points. Number one, the idea. Each typeface has a specific character which should be suitable in terms of shape, form, connotation, and classification for the concept. Number two, communication. People need to be able to read the message. A typeface should be readable and legible. Number three, your audience. Consider the audience when selecting and designing with type and the context in which the viewers will be seeing or reading the piece. Consider the target audience's age, especially in terms of legibility and readability, and their distance from page to screen. Number four, integration with images. Type and image act cooperatively to communicate the message. Determine the nature of that relationship. Will the typeface and image share defining characteristics such as line, shape, or textural quality or proportion? Or will their characteristics contradict with each other? Will one particular partner be neutral and the other be the star? Context and media. Consider how and where to display the type that will be seen. Will it be on a small, big, or huge screen, in a magazine, or on a large outdoor billboard? Will the impact be the same from a distance? How will varying lighting conditions affect readability? Will it be seen indoors or outdoors? Type families. A type family includes many style variations of a single typeface. Most type families include at least a light, a medium, and bold weight, each with its own italic. Variations of a typeface within a type family, which is called a type style, offer a variety while retaining the essential visual characteristics of the typeface. They include variations in weight, such as light, medium, and bold, width, condensed, regular, or extended, and angle, Roman, or upright and italic, as well as elaborations on the basic form, such as outline, shaded, or decorated. An extended family contains more styles of a typeface than a traditional family, including, for example, hairline, extended, and condensed styles. A superfamily is a family that contains all those styles, including serif and sans serif styles, and classifications that offer great versatility, such as ITC stone. This is the Spezia family. Aesthetics and meaning. Creating or selecting a typeface for its aesthetic value and the impact it will have on screen or in print is as important as creating and selecting an image. Every characteristic of a typeface contributes to the communication. Each typeface should be evaluated for its characteristics, aesthetic based on proportion, balance, visual weight, contrast in thick and thin, positive and negative shades of each individual letter, and the counters or the negative shapes or the area of the letter that are particularly or totally enclosed by the letter forms, as well as the shape relationship between and among the letters. All the characteristics of a typeface contribute to its visual voice, which should be in concert with your idea and content, as exemplified in this poster campaign for Penguin audiobooks, where the idea is that some classic stories are better told than read. Realizing how a display type will be seen in context up close, its impact from a distance, where it's seen, the lighting conditions, and more should be considered. How a typeface looks as a display or text must be tested and evaluated. John Sayles, the president and chief creator of J. Sayles Design, suggested asking yourself the following question. If there is a font I use more than others, it is probably blank, because the answer might be Helvetica, simple because it's simple and easy to read and it portrays a clear message. For both display and text, many respected designers and art directors utilize classic typefaces, those that have endured because they have grace and are eminently readable. Classic typefaces also possess visual qualities that have survived changes in fashion, those without eccentricities or trendy qualities. Decorative or novelty typefaces are not considered classics because they tend to be highly ornamental and can overwhelm a design. If you must use a decorative typeface, use it in a display type and in very small quantities, and mix it with a timeless typeface for text. Handmade or hand-drawn type or lettering is most often reserved for display. And of course, there are always those exceptions and situations where handmade type works well overall. In our classroom, I have a list of these classic typefaces that really work well with anything. So I think it's called like Good Typeface Choices or something like that. It's in the resources for typography. Here are some pointers. Typefaces that are too light or too heavy may be difficult to read, especially in smaller sizes. Thin strokes are difficult to be seen on screen and should be avoided for text. Typefaces with too much thick, thin contrast may be difficult to read if they are set very small. The thin strokes may disappear. Condensed or expanded letters are more difficult to read, especially in small sizes. They can appear to merge together when condensed and disassociate when expanded. Body copy set in all capitals is difficult to read. Opinions differ on whether all caps enhances or diminishes the readability for display type. Greater value contrast between type and background increases readability. Highly saturated colors may interfere with readability. People tend to read darker colors first. Type positioned over imagery is harder to read. Be very careful where you place it. Small white type on dark backgrounds is harder to read, especially in print. Each typeface has characteristics that communicate visually, from form, proportions, slant of access, shape of serif, thick and thin, proportions. So be aware of the typeface classification and whether the typeface is a classic, or if it's transcending time periods, or is even linked to particular eras. For example, a black letter typeface could suggest the medieval time period. So select a typeface whose character is appropriate to the idea and message. Related to these criteria is the need to select or create a typeface that works in concert with the image to communicate the idea. Each word is set in a typeface or hand-lettered has a basic meaning it denotes. Your typeface selection and typographic design of a word or sentence can also have a connotation, a secondary or suggested additional meaning, or an undertone or an association. When designing with type, be aware of both denotation and possible connotation. Aim for legibility. Some of the most legible typefaces are those that may appear neutral to the untrained eye. They communicate the written message without calling attention to themselves. Neutral typefaces tend to have discrete design characteristics, large counters, are easily recognized letter shapes, and ample X heights. Typefaces with discrete characteristics refer to letter forms without extremes. Extreme weight changes in each stroke, serifs that demand attention, and no extra or light or bold styles. Some people consider neutral, classic sans serif typefaces easier to read, especially on screen. Type image and image characteristics. Each characteristic of a typeface should be considered for integration with the characteristics of the accompanying images. With thousands of typefaces available, selecting a typeface to pair with an image may seem daunting. Thinking about the characteristics in terms of broad categories might help. Look for similar characteristics. Type and image are sympathetic, possessing similar characteristics, resulting in agreement and harmony. Type and image can also share a thematic purpose. Congruence relies on an agreement in shape, form, color palette, proportions, weights, width, thick and thin strokes, lines, textures, positive and negative shapes, and the time period. You can craft type and image as one unit. Contrast. Type and image possess different characteristics. Their contrast is purposeful. The contrast communicates a specific message. A typeface or handmade type works in opposition or juxtaposition to an image, depending on the contrast in shape, form, proportions, weights, width, thick and thin strokes, lines, textures, and positive negative shapes. So for example, a slab serif type versus a sinuous image, smooth textured images versus distressed type, detailed images versus loosely rendered image. Mixing styles and historical periods can also create opposition. The typeface and image are coupled for incongruity to make an ironic point. Type contextualizes the image in an image-driven construction, as shown here. When type is purposefully understated in contrast to a strong visual statement, the type is neutral. Here's a set of questions that should help you select well. Should the typeface share visual characteristics or personality with the visuals? Should it contrast with the characteristics of the visuals? Should the typeface be neutral and not draw attention to itself? Should the typeface dominate the solution, and would hand-drawn or handmade lettering work best? Mixing typefaces. Most designers pair typefaces when they want the distinction between headline and body copy. Other designers pair for conceptual, creative, or aesthetic reasons. The obvious reasons for pairing typefaces are to achieve differentiation. So for example, to make captions distinct from the body copy and to add contrast to the typographic overall design. An equally obvious reason to avoid pairing similar typefaces is that the reader might not be able to tell them apart. Here are some guidelines in pairing display and body copy typefaces. Mix for the purpose of contrast. Weight contrast with display bolder. You can achieve this and still keep the typefaces within a similar family style-wise. And within style, this works when and only when the contrast is extreme. Mix similar typefaces, similar structures, basic skeleton. There should be shared commonalities in the skeletal structure. So for example, modern Roman Bodoni with grotesque sans like a Helvetica. Old style Roman like Venetian with a humanist sans like Frutiger or Gill sans. Or similar character of shapes, mechanical, soft, calligraphic, irregular, casual, eccentric, for example, a geometric sans paired with a mechanical unbroken slab serif. Examine the apertures of the structures, closed aperture versus open aperture. A general rule is to restrict your designs to no more than 2 typefaces. An excellent alternative is to select a very rich type family. Typography design has a massive power to influence a message. When used the right way, a proper combination of style, size, hierarchy, kerning, and line spacing, there is nothing you can't express with it. By understanding the rules and facts about letters and the various ways they can be used, we're able to express ourselves through them in endless ways. This information is nothing but a guide, and I highly encourage you to learn and experiment. Forget what you learned, make mistakes, and start all over again. By doing so, you're going to develop a style that is uniquely your own.